everyone, my name is Ebrahim. So today I will going to discuss what is equilibrium and some key theories related to equilibrium in economics. The market equilibrium, law of supply and demand, price mechanism, short run versus long run equilibrium, general equilibrium theory, stable equilibrium and disequilibrium, and the last is Nash equilibrium. Market equilibrium, understanding supply, demand, and prices. In microeconomics, the concept of equilibrium is very important because it tells us the price and quantity where a market is balanced. Imagine a local gasoline market. There are two important groups: the consumers who want to buy gasoline and producers who sell it. Each has different plans. Consumers want more gasoline at lower prices, while the producers want to sell more at higher prices. The interaction between these two groups is shown with demand and supply curves. The demand curve shows how much gasoline consumers want at each price, while the supply curves show how much gasoline producers are willing to sell. The point where these two curves cross is called the equilibrium. At this point, the equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity occur. This is where the amount consumers want to buy exactly equals the amount producers want to sell. For example, suppose the equilibrium price of gasoline is 1.40 per gallon and the equilibrium quantity is 600 million gallons. At this price, there is no shortage or surplus. So what happens when prices change? Above equilibrium price. So if the price rise above 1.40 say to 1.80, people buy less gasoline because it is more expensive. Maybe they reduce driving or carpool more often. The quantity demanded falls to 500 million gallons. On the other hand, producers want to sell more at this higher price, so the quantity supplied rises to 680 million gallons. Now, there is a surplus because producers have more gasoline than consumers want. Gasoline may pile up at gas stations or refineries. To sell their extra supply, sellers lower prices. As the price drops, more consumers buy gasoline and producers sell less, pushing the market back toward equilibrium. Below equilibrium price. If the price drops below 1.40 say to 1.20, consumers want more gasoline, maybe driving longer distance or using bigger cars. The quantity demanded rises to 700 million gallons. Producers, however, are less motivated to sell at a lower price, so the quantity supplied drops to 550 million gallons. This creates a shortage. There is not enough gasoline for everyone. Buyers rush to gas stations and sellers notice they can make more profit by raising prices. Prices increase until the market returns to the equilibrium of 1.40 per gallons and 600 million gallons. The word equilibrium means balance. In a market, this balance happens when the price and quantity of a product are just right. Buyers want to buy exactly the amount that sellers want to sell. When this happens, the price will stay the same because no one has a reason to change it. But if the market is not in balance, like when there are too many products or too few, then economic forces will push the market back toward the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity. Equilibrium is a fundamental concept that applies to various aspects of economic analysis, including markets, supply, and demand. Here are some key theories related to equilibrium in economics. So the first is market equilibrium. So when we say market equilibrium, it occurs when the quantity supplied equals the quantity demanded at a certain price. On a graph, this is where the supply curve and the demand curve intersect. Like for example, in the gasoline market, if people want to buy 600 million gallons at 1.40 per gallon, and producers also want to sell exactly 600 million gallons at that price, the market is at equilibrium. Price won't change unless something else affects supplies or demand. The second is law of supply and demand. So when we say law of supply, producers supply more when the price is higher. So the law of demand is consumers buy less when the price is higher. So when these two interact, the market naturally find an equilibrium price and quantity. So like for example, if a gasoline prices rise, people drive less, so the demand drops, and producers make more, so the supply rises. Eventually, prices adjust back toward the equilibrium. The third is price mechanism. So when we say price mechanism is the process by which price adjusts to balance supply and demand. So if it is shortage, so when demand is higher than supply, prices rise. This encourages producers to make more and consumers to buy less. So if it's surplus, when supply is higher than demand, prices fall. This encourages more people to buy and producer to reduce supply. Like for example, if a hurricane damaged oil refineries, gasoline supply drops, shortage pushes price up, balancing the market again. Number four is short run versus long run equilibrium. So when we say short run equilibrium, the market can be balanced temporarily, even if some producers are making extra profit or losses. So when we say long run equilibrium, over time, firms enter or leave the market. Supply and demand adjust until all firms makes normal profit, enough to stay in business but to extra profit. Like for example, if a new bakery opens and sells bread at high prices, if may more bakeries open, increasing supply and lowering prices until profits are normal. Number five is general equilibrium theory. This looks at all markets in an economy at once. A change in one market can affect other markets. Economists try to find a set of prices and quantities that balance all markets together. So, like for example, a rise in gasoline prices can increase transportation costs, which may raise food prices. General equilibrium studies this chain affects. The number six is stable equilibrium and disequilibrium. So when you say stable equilibrium, if the market is disturbed slightly, it naturally returns to balance. So when we say disequilibrium, when supply and demand are not balanced, shortage or surpluses occur. Market forces push prices to restore equilibrium. Like for example, if a new technology temporarily reduces car fuel efficiency, gasoline demand rises, prices go up until supply and demand balance again. The last is the Nash equilibrium. This is from game theory. Nash equilibrium occurs when each person's strategy is optimal given what others are doing. No one can improve their situation by changing their strategy alone. Like for example, two competing gas stations set prices. If both choose the price where neither can gain more by changing alone, that is the Nash equilibrium.